from Whitehall to the Town Hall, from the central to the local, from bureaucrats to patients, parents and pupils. This coalition will disperse power and restore freedom because we believe liberty builds bigger people, able to do more, change more and achieve more. And it's now my pleasure to ask the Business Secretary, Vince Cable, I could do a sort of act to fill in, Vince, but I don't think you're in I was going to suggest some ballroom dancing, but I don't think you're in the position to do it. The Business Secretary.
Yes, well, I do head the Department for Technological Innovation, and we're making it up as we go along. The second principle of the coalition is fairness, and without agreement on that, on the concept of fairness, the coalition would never have happened. We define fairness as being a society where we protect the the weakest, the most vulnerable, and where everybody has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. And the principle of fairness is even more important in difficult times than good times. And these are difficult times because we have this requirement, priority, to deal with the budget deficit. And I just want to make it absolutely clear, I fully support the efforts of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, to deal with this problem urgently, because the problems, the financial crisis in Europe over the last few weeks has underlined the absolute priority for establishing confidence in the country. But the success of the government won't simply be measured by whether we deal with the budget deficit, but how we deal with it. And the programme of government makes it clear what our approach will be. And the approach is that the burdens have got to be fairly shared. And in the difficult times ahead, we won't balance the books on the backs of the poorest. And the coalition is also about more than the short-term rescue of the economy. It's about stability, it's about government for the long term, changes that will last. And so we'll put the principle of fairness at the heart of the economy in the long term. And it will drive tax policy, because our aim is fairer, not higher taxes. And that's why we've said we'll increase the personal allowance for income tax to help lower and middle earners, lifting low earners out of tax, giving people an incentive to work. And we will increase the personal allowance to £10,000, making real-term steps each year towards meeting this policy objective. And we will prioritise this over other tax cuts. We'll also put fairness at the heart of our reforms of the banking system. The banks that have been rescued or underwritten by the taxpayer must be treated as the servants, not the masters of the economy. We'll reform the banking system, ensure that banks support business and economic growth through improved access to finance. And we'll also put fairness at the heart of our education system. A good education is one that gives every child a fair start in life, making sure no one is held back by the circumstances of their birth. So we'll reform the school system to tackle widening education inequality, give greater powers to parents and pupils to choose a good school, and our pupil premium will allow schools with the most disadvantaged pupils to deliver what private school pupils already take for granted. In other words, small class sizes, the best facilities, and resources to attract the best staff. This coalition is a genuine partnership based on progress and reform, and a new era of politics will be underpinned by fairness. I'll hand over to the Chancellor.
Well, thank you very much, Vince. The third principle that unites the work of this coalition is responsibility. And responsibility is easy to understand, but difficult to define. Put simply, it is doing the right thing, even when that is difficult. Understanding your obligations, not just to yourself, but to those around you, to those you have never met, even to those who have not yet been born. But this value has been steadily eroded from our national life over decades. Spool back to the source of so many of the great problems we face as a country today, and they come back to a lack of responsibility. Our enormous debts, our massive welfare rolls, our deteriorating environment. At the root of these problems may be one person, a collection of people, or even a whole culture saying, let's do what we want instead of what is right. So this coalition will put everything it does through this simple test. If it encourages responsibility, we should do it. If it encourages irresponsibility, we shouldn't. We must start with government. We will bring responsibility to our public finances, saving £6 billion this year. And on Monday, we will be making further announcements about that. This might not always be the easy thing to do, but it is right. We need to show the world that Britain can tackle its debts and live within its means if we are to sustain the recovery. We will bring responsibility to rebuilding our economy, not taking the easy route of pumping the bubble back up, repeating the mistakes of the past decade, building another unsustainable boom, but creating a new economic model where we save and invest for the future instead of building an economy on debt. And we will invest in the jobs and industries of the future, industries such as that will not just produce wealth for our country, but will protect our planet too. We will bring responsibility to our society, radically reforming the welfare system. We will do the difficult thing, the hard thing, the thing that no government has managed to do, and break the culture of welfare dependency that is wasting so many lives and so much money. By saying to those who can work, you should work, and to those who can't work, we will always look after you. Bringing the value of responsibility back to the heart of our national life will not be a simple or short-term task, but this coalition government will play its part by getting behind those people who want to do the right thing and always doing the right thing ourselves, however difficult that may be. I'd now like to hand over to the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Chancellor, and good morning, everybody. Since becoming Prime Minister just over a week ago, I've been trying to answer that great question in politics, which is, where does power lie? I've had a good look around number 10 Downing Street. I've even wandered into the Cabinet Office. I found the Deputy Prime Minister's office. I even went yesterday to the meeting of the permanent secretaries in Whitehall. And today, I finally made it to the Treasury, courtesy of George. But the truth is, power lies in clarity about what you want to do and in determination about seeing it through. And that is what this document, that is what this coalition agreement, that is what this programme, that is what this morning is all about. And the events of the last 2 weeks have been extraordinary. The first hung Parliament in over 3 decades, Conservatives in government for the first time in 13 years, the first coalition government in over 65 years, the first Deputy Prime Minister from another party since the Second World War. Along the way, the circumstances that we have been finding ourselves in are not ones that I had originally planned for. But I've approached each twist and turn and fork in the road with 2 things in mind. First, an optimism about what we can achieve, but second, a gritty realism about what we should do. For me, politics is about public service in the national interest. That is the aim, that is the goal. That is what I went into politics to achieve. And so I've done what I've done because I thought it was the right thing to do. Given the massive challenges this country faces, particularly the deficit, the national interest was not served by a minority government limping along. It was served by strong, stable, decisive government that could really act in the long-term interests of our country. But the more I see of this coalition in action, the more I see its potential, not just in solving the problems that lie before us, but solving them with a shared set of values. Not just in working together day to day, as governments have to do, but in changing our country for years to come. Not just in providing the strong, stable government I spoke about, but in being a genuinely radical, reforming government. And that is evidenced, I believe, by the document we are publishing today. It is a full programme of reform for a full Parliament by a partnership government. In its pages are plans for a new green economy where we set enterprise free, for fairer taxes, for open and accountable government, for radical school reform, and for building the big society. And next week, in our first Queen's speech, these transformative ideas will start moving from the pages of the document